Drum Talk, and today we're going to do another segment of Ask Earl Anything. Now, this has got a great response, this segment, so what I want to make sure you guys all know is that whatever questions are put on this video will be in next week's video. I may have missed a question because probably somebody put a question on a different video, and if I did and you are looking for your question today, please send it to me. I'll make sure it's in next week's show for sure. But I've got 3 questions. They're all around the same, similar topics. And let's start with the first one in no particular order. The first one comes from Brian Corey. And Brian says, what is your drumhead configuration on your whole kit? Top and bottom. I assume you want kick and snare too. Now, drumheads. This is a very interesting topic for me. Drumheads are one of those funny things that I have lots of different drumheads I've used over the years, and I tend to recycle drumheads occasionally. For a long time, in most of my early videos I did this year, actually 2017, I was using Aquarian modern vintage heads on the tops, which are kind of a medium head on the tops of my toms, and you'd see it on some of my snare drums I had it on for a while. But since that time, my walnut finish Gretsch kit has coated emperors on the top and a clear ambassador on the bottom. I've had that clear ambassador on the bottom for a long time. They say you should change them periodically. I don't know. You gotta be rich or have drumhead endorsement. And I don't have a drumhead endorsement right now, and I'm not rich, but I tend to not change the bottom heads on the toms very often. Okay? Now this little kit right here right now has regular ambassadors on the toms, and I think the bottom heads are both different on each tom. I think they're pretty darn close to a clear ambassador on these toms. Bass drums tend to be I like Evans EMAD heads, to be honest, so I tend to do that with bass drum heads. I tend to use an Evans EMAD head, and I have that on my Gretsch bass drum. It's a clear Evans EMAD head. I've had a coated Evans EMAD head on the 20. This particular kick drum with the 14x18 has got a clear EMAD on it. Okay, my front heads right now are, I think this is a modern vintage 2 head, okay, or maybe a deep vintage 2 on this bass drum, and I have a modern vintage. Now I think that's a deep vintage 2 on the kick drum on the Gretsch 20-inch bass drum. Somebody this week asked me a question about my concert toms. Why are all the heads different? That's because those are just a hodgepodge of heads I threw on those concert toms. I was looking for more of a clear sound, so I went for every clear head I had. I didn't have a whole set in 8, 10, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16. I just didn't have a clear set. So what ended up on my Do You Know It's Christmas concert tom kit, I think I had a clear ambassador 8-inch tom head. I had a black dot, CS black dot 10-inch tom head. I have another 10-inch tom that gets rotated in. It's got a rims mount on it right now. I think it's got a pinstripe head on it, which is a clear head. The 13's got a black dot that I've had for years on it. The 14 had some other clear head. I think it was a clear ambassador that I had hanging around from a bottom head. The 15, I only have one 15-inch tom. I only have one 15-inch head, which is a coated emperor. And the 16-inch concert tom has a clear ambassador on it that was a bottom head at one point in time. So my concert tom's got a whole bunch of different heads on it. I use mostly Remo, but I've used Evans heads. I like Evans G2 heads. I like pinstripe heads. I like coated vintage ambassador heads by Remo. I like coated ambassador heads. I like coated emperor heads. Haven't bought a lot of clear emperors or clear anything heads in a long time. So when it comes to heads, I kind of have this thing for coated. More likely to buy a coated head. I have tried fiber skin heads and Renaissance heads. I try to go for that kind of calfskin kind of sound. That's why I went for the modern vintage heads by Aquarian. Now for snare heads, I like CS black dot heads, and I usually like a hazy 300 bottom head, so it's 300 mil bottom head. I'll use the Evans 300 mil bottom head too occasionally, but I usually go for the Remo hazy bottom head, and my snares tend to be control sound coated CS heads on the top. But I have used ambassadors. This one today, my 7-inch DMR walnut right now has got a coated Emperor because I needed to change it. I've used the modern vintage Aquarian heads on snare drums. So I've used a lot of different heads on snare drums. I've used a lot of different heads, period. I mean, when I started playing drums, I was using Ludwig heads with silver dots on them. I had the clear heads, Ludwig, for my first Vistalite kit. Eventually got a set of black dot heads like John Bonham had on his drums. Black dots sound really cool on Vistalite drums. I had a set of Evans hydraulic heads to get that Steve Gadd sound for a long time. They're just really dead heads. So anyhow, I hope that gives you kind of a picture of my head mindset. Now, here's the thing. When I get a new set of heads, I'll change the heads. That's what I'll do. So it all depends on what I'm doing, if I'm going to bring it in. And that coated Emperor head set I had for my Gretsch kit, my walnut Gretsch kit, I've had for about 2 years sitting in a box waiting to be used. So I tend to use what makes sense to me and what kind of sound I'm going for. I have been liking the sounds of coated ambassadors and the vintage ambassadors. I had a Noble Cooley kit, which I have on a video called Mr. JPA, and there's a couple other places you might have seen the Noble Cooley kit. I haven't done a lot of videos with it, but I don't have that kit anymore. But I had coated vintage A's on it, and those vintage A's sound so beautiful. I've still got to get a set for my Gretsch kit one of these days. I love those heads. So anyhow, I tend to try different things, and you'll see different heads on my drums, but the coated Emperors have been a standard of mine with the clear ambassadors forever. So you never can go wrong with those heads on just about any drum. They work. You have to have a really professional drum, in my opinion, really pro-level drum with good bearing edges on top and bottom to play ambassadors to get them to sound the way you want them to sound. Otherwise, they kind of sound sometimes too thin if they're on really cheap drums. But coated Emperors, the double ply heads, they work great on any drums. Okay? So that's my first question, and I think it went the full 10 minutes. Second question. Bill Hosmer asked another question. I think he asked one last week. During a gig, if the drummer hits hard, lots of rim shots, the snares tend to detune. How do you deal with that? Great question. Now, this is one of the advantages of die-cast hoops. Die-cast hoops tend to stay more in tune. But what I do is I always keep a key around, okay, and I'm always feeling for the lugs, and I start to hear it detune, I'll just tune it back up. Another technique you can use is to get some plastic washers to go under the metal washers on your drums. And the plastic washers tend to squash a little bit, and they stay a little bit more in tune. There's also this insert you can buy. I've had them on some drums. I forget who makes them. Actually, my friend Scott Hazen put them on one of my drums, and I got a bunch of them. I have them on my most detuning drum that I have. The drum that detunes the most and the quickest, believe it or not, is... Oh, I should do this, right? Do one of these. Is the Yamaha Steve Jordan snare drum. Don't ask me why. That drum just detunes all the time. I'll be playing it really high pitched, and then by the end of the set, it'll be low pitched. And I don't even realize it, because the lower pitch it gets, sometimes it kind of sounds funkier and cooler sounding, so I just let it keep going. I've done that in church many times with that drum. But that drum, I've tried those inserts. I also have tried a nut, little nut. I don't know if it's a number 8 or a number 10 nut. It has to fit on the threads of your snares. So if the threads are 24 thread count, you got to find the right one. You put the nut on, and then I kind of tighten it down with a little wrench, like a 3/8 wrench. It's about 3/8 size. And I put them on the lugs. Actually, this drum is not as easy to take off today. I tend to put them like right in this area so it tightens down onto the lug. Be ginger with it, you know, you gotta be careful with it. I tried it on that drum. It works a little bit, but it's not, you know, Ludwig made one of these things a long time ago on their Coliseum drums back in the 80s. and that's where I got the idea. It was kind of like a gnarled thing, and you can kind of screw it down and hold it down in. Tried it on that drum, but they detune too, so you probably have to put 2 of them on that drum because that thing just detunes quick. There's also a product called lug locks, which are these little white things, and these white things go on the lug, and they don't let the lug move. That's another trick. I haven't had a lot of success with those, but they do work. They're a pain when you're changing the head. You got to pop them off. That's always the problem with them. But I've used those too. I think the key is to have a good, is where you put your lugs on your drum when you're slamming it. If you're basically slamming a lug, you're going to detune it no matter what you do. So if I try to put the lugs so it's in the middle of the spot where I'm slamming rim shots. Okay? And you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to the sound of the drum and periodically tune it. That's kind of how I deal with it. So that's kind of my thing. Another thing, I love snare drums, so I have lots of different snare drums. So some drums I want detuned, so I'll go for that sound. Some I don't. You just got to keep your ears open. That's the only thing I've found that works. I hope that answers that question. And the next one is from my good friend Yohato45. Yohato is from Japan. He was one of my first subscribers way back in the days when I had very little subscribers. And Yohato, I gotta shout out to you. Yohato loves Toto, so he plays Toto videos. I think he found me playing some Toto stuff early on. But anyhow, he asked me a question: how often do you change your snare wires, and will you change depending on the song? Now, the answer to that question is simple. When I find snare wires that work on a drum, I will keep those snare wires on for as long as they last. Now, if I don't like the way the drum's sounding, and no matter what I do to tune it, I will try different snare wires to make it work. But I do not change snare wires depending on the song. I change drums depending on the song. So if this song doesn't sound right with this drum, I'm going to pull a different snare drum down. And I have a variety of snare drums. I have piccolo snare drums to big, deep marching snare drums. And they're not all pretty and they're not all great, but I have a lot of really decent snare drums. So my snare drum collection consists of a 5-inch Black Beauty. Now what I tend to do with things like snare drums is I'll change rims. So my Black Beauty right now has got die cast on it. It came with triple flange. Eventually I'm going to put the triple flange back on the drum. I found the triple flange today. I was looking for some stuff and I found the triple flange. So that's eventually going to go back on that drum. I have a Noble Cooley solid shell, 1 ply, 5-inch drum. That's got a certain sound to it. So when I want that sound, I pull that drum out. I've got a 5x13 pearl mahogany, African mahogany Omar Hakim drum, which has got a very pretty, beautiful, warm sound to it, but also has some crack because it's a 13-inch. So I tend to change drums before I would change snare wires. But sometimes I don't like snare wires, then I will change the snare wires to ones I find. My favorite snare wires are the 42 strand snare wires. Now I don't think I have it on this drum. I'll pull this drum off again. No, I don't. Today I've got pure sound on this. I tried putting the 42 wide ones on this. It didn't work. This drum, the pure sound, I think these are 25s. They work. It all depends on the drum though. Every drum's different. And you've got to find the right wires for the right drum. So that's my only thing I want to say to you about that. Okay. So Yohato, hopefully I got that, and hopefully I'm getting your name right today. Alright, so that's all the questions I have for Ask Earl Anything this week. I even did cover that one question because the one question came, I didn't say I was going to answer it here, but the question came about the concert toms and why my heads were all mismatched. So I answered that question too. Couple other parting words I'm going to call this. First off, please continue to send questions. Love this segment. It's one of my favorite segments I'm doing right now. And if I don't get questions, I will come back to doing drum talks with stuff I want to talk about. But if you guys encourage me to do this, I will do this and I'll try to answer your questions. As you can tell, I am a drum geek. I have 40-something years of Modern Drummer magazine, and I've read all kinds of drum books. One day I'm going to do something on all these drum books I've kind of read. where I get a lot of my knowledge from about people's setups and things like that, because there are some books on these things that I've read. But as you can see, I'm a geek. I love talking about this stuff. I'm not an electronics guy, as you probably know, but I have used electronics. If you guys ask me electronics questions, I might have answers for you. I have an SPDSX. I was going to do a whole segment on SPDSX, how to use that in a worship setting, because I used to use it as a metronome and sounds in the one church I played at. It was the metronome for the whole gig. Like, I was triggering the metronome from my pads. The next setting, I would go to the next metronome setting, and then I had a different set of sounds for it. So there's cool ways to use that SPDX pad. That's just one of the many ways to use that pad. So someday I could talk about electronics if you guys want to ask that question. But I am not the electronic drum guy, as you know. I don't do electronic drum covers. But lastly, I want to say to you guys that I enjoy doing drum covers, and I enjoy doing these drum battles, but I want you all to know that, like I said the other night, when I think I was kind of a little tired that night, I think it came off in my last little update video. A couple of you guys, wanted me to know that, hey, we don't want to push you to do anything. Listen, everything I do because I want to do it. Nobody pushes me here. But I am feeling kind of like the drum battle thing for me, I need to kind of stop for a while. So that's my plan, is to stop doing drum battles and just play covers and enjoy the covers. I'm not going after subs anymore. If I get over 1,000 subs and I can monetize again someday, great. If I never get to 1,000 subs, great. If I have 50 people like my videos, great. If I have 2 that like my videos and watch them, want to talk to me, and want to be friends on this community, great. I don't care anymore. I just want you all to know this. I think part of this community thing is we have a tendency to try to be there for everybody. I can't be there for all of you guys. I wish I could. When I see your videos pop up, I will try to watch them, and occasionally I'll say something about them. But life is busy, and I know life's busy for you guys too, so I don't expect you guys to comment on all my videos. If you like my videos, put a little like. If you don't like my videos, don't put a little dislike. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not in a popularity contest here. But I know some of you guys, I really dig your playing. I really dig your drum kits. I really dig who you are, and you guys will probably still be with me for a long time. We'll keep going together and growing together in this YouTube thing, but YouTube has kind of made it so that none of us can succeed. What would somebody that started their drum lesson business on YouTube 10 years ago or 7 years ago? I mean, when I watch Stephen Taylor videos, I think that's his name, Stephen Taylor, the Nashville guy, I've watched some of his lessons, great guy. He started a long time ago. That's what built up his channels. The opportunity for us to build our channels that way are few and far between, because truthfully YouTube is becoming a format that a lot of people are getting tired of. Okay? And the reason they're getting tired of it is because YouTube wants to go mainstream, and they want to crush the little guy. So I don't even know if this is going to get on the camera, so it's kind of funny. But anyhow, I had a rant about that. I hope it got on the camera. I hope it makes it to the end. Just want to let you know, I love all you guys. Please keep encouraging me if you can. If you can't, that's fine too. But I'm not shooting for 1,000 subs no more. I am just playing my drums and having a good old time. And you're going to hear a lot more of me playing each week. I may even put up multiple videos some weeks. But that's what I'm about. I'm about having a good old time. So, I'm not here to smoke anybody. I'm not here to criticize anybody. But if any of you guys want my feedback, you say, hey, what do you think of something? Send it to me. Send me your link to your video. I'll happily give you feedback. Okay? I do teach lessons. I've been playing a long time. If you want to give me feedback, go ahead. Give me feedback. That's fine. I get crazy feedback sometimes. Like the last one, the craziest thing I got was, and I hope this makes the camera, was a guy wrote on one of my videos I did early on and said, your floor tom's out of tune. And I just didn't hear it. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the floor tom being out of tune. But something he heard, maybe he's got perfect pitch. It's a possibility. Ah, that's the infamous sound of somebody commenting on something on YouTube. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.